Hello there. I'm of course John Doe. You know who I am, and hopefully I know who you are too. Now, today I'm actually in a local park here in my local hood here in Tokyo, and we're drinking cheap ass beer, of course. It's made by a Kirin. I usually call it circle jerk beer because it's got a circle there on it, you know, just to be cheeky. But what we're going to talk about today is the idea of contradiction and revolution. This is often confusing, so let's break this down a little bit so we can understand it a little better. Now, as we know, there is contradiction in all things, even down to the very atoms of existence. We find contradiction. Now, why do we as Marxists focus on contradiction? Because contradiction in capitalism is key to sparking revolution. Now let's look at this a little bit. What contradictions do we want to focus on? Well, number one, we want to look for contradictions which are widespread, which have potential to be antagonistic, or are already antagonistic. So we find something that is affecting a lot of people and continues to be a major contradiction in capitalism. Now, which side of the contradiction do we side with? Well, of course, we go for the marginalized group, or more commonly known as the oppressed, because they are the easiest ones to understand class consciousness, and the easiest ones to be able to explain to them and help them to realize their true potential. So how do we help them? Well, it's pretty easy. We help them to organize, and we help them to build and become aware of their own class consciousness. Now, why do we do that? We do that because what we are trying to create is a kind of breaking point of the contradiction. It's like a pyramid. At first, contradictions start as non-antagonistic. They exist together, right? But if it's widespread, and the marginalized group or the oppressed become large enough, it becomes antagonistic. And it builds like a pyramid. And if we help them to organize, and they realize their class consciousness in society, it starts to perpetuate. And it reaches up, right? And it reaches this thing we call the breaking point. Boom! Right? It's when it explodes. It's when the contradiction can no longer exist in society without there being a fundamental, sudden change. And at that point is when revolution can be sparked and the capitalist class can potentially be overthrown. Now, just because we reached the breaking point, does that mean revolution will happen? True revolution into socialism? No, it does not. But it does present the opportunity to bring about revolution and to create the dictatorship of the proletariat, which would be the transitional phase to communism known as socialism. So that's what we are looking for. We have to be very, very keen on the material conditions that exist in society, and we must always be looking for those widespread contradictions which have a large marginalized group within the contradiction. And those are the people we focus on. Those are the people who need us Marxists the most. Because they already understand that something's wrong. As most liberals will say all the time. They'll say what they don't like, but they don't know what they want as an alternative. That's where we, the Marxists, come into play. We reach out to those marginalized groups within the antagonistic contradiction. And we speak to them. And we help them to understand their class consciousness. And we help to build it. Now, there are several tactics we can use. We can try to form a dual power. We can try to organize into trade unions. Many things that we can do. There are many, many tactics. But what we want, number one, is to attempt to spark revolution. So like I said, we must be very, very keen and watchful of material conditions in society. And when we see these potential for antagonistic contradictions as they start to grow, we must be there. And we must serve the masses, as goes along with Mao or Kim Il-sung, especially, and also Lenin, and to some extent Stalin, and of course Marx. All these people are in line with the same idea. So let's keep that in mind. So let's review to make it more simple. What is our number one goal? Revolution. Why do we want revolution? To overthrow the capitalist class and transition into socialism. How do we do that? We look for a widespread contradiction that we are pretty sure is antagonistic. Which side do we go with? The marginalized, or as known as the oppressed. How do we help them? We help them to organize, using many of the tactics that we know as Marxist to be effective. What do we hope happens during this process? We reach the breaking point. Now, when we reach the breaking point, we must already be prepared and ready to spark revolution. So I hope this video helps us as Marxists to fully understand our goal and what we are trying to do. And as always, you've been drinking with a Marxist.